Have you ever wanted to ask out a girl but you're just not sure how to go about it? Well, don't worry, I'll show you everything to know so that you can keep it respectful while staying smooth. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of I Am Fox. My name is Chris Fox, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most terrifying and intimidating things that a person can ever do, and that is ask out a girl. So why am I talking about this? Well, in 2018, everything is online, so whether it be Facebook, Instagram, texting, FaceTiming, there's all these different ways of communicating with people that are electronic, so talking to someone face-to-face is becoming less and less common. The same goes for dating. So we have all these different dating sites, and when you want to talk to a girl that you think is interesting, you send out a message, and then hopefully you get a response, and then they respond, and then you talk for quite a while, and then maybe you text, and then maybe you finally go on a date. But what happens when you meet someone in person that you think is interesting? How do you ask them out? Well, it can be very intimidating, as I've already said, and it can get kind of complicated. So I just thought I would do a video on this topic and give you some tips so that you can do it successfully. Now, when thinking about asking out a girl, and actually when doing it, there are 4 important things that you have to keep in mind. These are, number 1, keep it respectful. Number 2, keep it simple. Number 3, ask at the end. And finally, leave on a high note. Keeping it respectful. So why is this important? Well, there are a couple of reasons, but the main reason is that women, unlike men, have to deal with a lot of unwanted attention. And usually this unwanted attention comes from guys who are hitting on them and commenting on their physical appearance and how attractive they are, or how if they don't give them their number, how they're mean and they're stuck up, and they're all these horrible things. So really, the last thing that any woman needs is for you to come along and ask them out in a really inappropriate, really disrespectful way. And the second reason is that, let's be honest, we're guys. And as guys, we have a reputation for being, at best, disrespectful, and at the worst, super creepy. So it's something that we should try to avoid. So how do you keep it respectful? Well, one of the things you should do is avoid any comments about their physical appearance. Instead, comment on some aspect of their personality. Were they talkative? Did you get along? Was she funny? Did she seem smart? Did she have an interesting story? If there's a yes to any of those things, comment on that. Comment on what it was that made you want to ask her out. Again, if it's physical appearance, do not mention that. Find something else you liked about the person, and then include that when you ask them out. Another way of keeping it respectful is to give them an out. Let them know that it's okay for them to say no. If they don't want to, they shouldn't feel pressured. What would that look like? Well, here's an example. This is going to sound really strange, but you seem like a really cool person. I actually really enjoyed our conversation, and I was wondering if you'd like to go out sometime for a cup of coffee. And if you don't want to, that's completely fine. You can absolutely say no. And obviously my delivery is a little stiff just because I'm filming it on YouTube, so it's not going to look as natural. But if you keep the same approach and you do it in real life, you should be just fine. Keeping it simple. As with a lot of things in life, sometimes the simplest approach is the best approach. So in this situation, when you're asking out a girl, just keep it to the very basics. Just say, hey, I like you. We had a really great conversation. I love talking to you. Would you like to go for coffee sometime? Avoid any lines that you typically use, or avoid any lines that you think are really clever, just because they're going to come off as insincere and cheesy, and really you don't want to create that impression. So just stick with the basics, keep it to the very main points that you want to say, and go from there. Asking at the end. It might be tempting to ask out the girl immediately if you really like them. And while it's tempting, it's better to wait until the very end of the interaction before asking them out. Now let's use the example of a waitress. Let's say you get to the restaurant, you get shown to your table, you sit down, you look at the menu, the waitress comes over, and you start chatting about the different options, and you feel like you're really hitting it off. Now, it might be tempting to ask them out immediately, but in fact, it's actually better to wait till the very end. So one of the reasons to do this is that so the waitress doesn't feel like her tip is dependent on her answer. So if you ask her out in the middle of a meal, she might feel like she needs to say yes in order to get a good tip. And if she does, she might say yes, but it might not be a genuine yes, because that's, again, another form of pressure that people can feel, is that they feel like, well, if I say no, this person's going to give me a really bad tip, I need the money, so they might feel they need to say yes just for that. So if you ask at the very end, after you've paid, it's going to make her feel more comfortable. Now, another reason to do this is just for your own sanity. If you ask out a girl at the beginning of a meal and she says no, it's going to make the rest of the meal much more awkward. But if she says no and it's already at the end of the meal, you've already paid, then all you need to say is, all right, no problem, have a great night, and leave. And that's the end, and you don't need to think about it again. So, in any situation, it's always best to wait till the very end of an interaction. Leaving on a high note. What do I mean by leaving on a high note? Well, what I mean is leaving the situation where you've asked her out on a positive note so you feel good and she remembers you in a positive way. So there are really only two versions of this. So the first version is if she says yes. So in that scenario, if she says yes, then what you want to do is you want to get out of the situation as quickly as possible. So the best thing to do is just say, oh, okay, great, I'm really looking forward to it. I'll send you a text and we can try and set up a time and have a great night. Something simple, leave it at that, and then just get out. Now, the reason you want to get out as quickly as possible is so that you don't overstay your welcome and that you don't inadvertently say something that's going to make her rethink going on the date with you and will make her hesitant to respond to your inevitable text. The second version of this is if she says no. So in the event that you ask a girl out and they say no, instead of fleeing this scene as quickly as possible, it actually is better just to stay a little bit longer and try and have a casual, pleasant conversation with them. Now, I find it helpful to make an observation, maybe about something that you find amusing or something you never understood. And that way, when you have this pleasant conversation, she's going to remember you as the guy that made that funny comment about elephants instead of the guy immediately ran away after you asked her out. So it's going to make her feel more positive about you. And now the second thing it's going to do, it's actually going to help out your own sanity. So in keeping with the waitress example, if this is a restaurant that you frequent, instead of having to worry about seeing this person again and worrying about, oh no, when I go out for dinner, am I going to run into the waitress that I asked out and she said no, you're going to be thinking, okay, you know what, I asked her out, it was a little awkward, but it's okay because we had that funny conversation, so it should be fine. So really, it's going to help out your own sanity. So I did this a couple months ago. I asked someone out, they said no. So instead of leaving as quickly as possible, I ended up chatting with them, asked her how her day was, and then we started talking about Instagram, and I made a comment about how I think people Instagram way too much, and that was kind of amusing. So when I see her now, it's not super awkward, and it's just like, oh, hey, how are you? Hope your day's going well kind of thing. Nothing too awkward. With those tips in mind, you should be well on your way to asking girls out. Well, that about does it for this video. What did you guys think? Was I helpful? Did I have some good ideas? Or was I completely off base? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time. But until then, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and have yourself a fabulous day.